Okay, you guys live.
Hey everyone, welcome to Fit2B and our live chat for today. My name is Beth Learn and I'm the founder of Fit2B, and I have a few guests with me today. And I want to really quick though tell you why I'm in barn clothes. I've got my Carhartt jacket and my flannels on because we are over here in the Pacific Northwest getting hit with the start of a pretty epic storm. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but we are expecting 5 to 12 inches of rain here in the next 24 hours. And we live on 7 acres. And so we've been running around for the last 24 hours just trying to get ready, getting things tied down, making sure animals are secure. And it is crazy time. So I'm just praying my power doesn't go out while we're talking today. So I want to tie that in though, because I was thinking about the storm. And how when I was dealing with depression myself, that's our topic for today. This was back when my son was about 1.5 years or 2 old. It felt like a storm all the time in my life. And I was like, how fitting that we're having this storm today. So we have Dr. Hyatt, who is a naturopath, and one of my best friends, Alice, who happens to also be my co-founder's wife. Alice and I have known each other since we were little kids, long before Fit2B. And her and I kind of share our stories about depression. They kind of overlap, but I want to right away encourage those of you who are participating and watching to submit your questions. And then you'll be able to rewatch this later on YouTube. But if you're joining us now, you have the unique privilege of being able to post any questions you have. And we're probably going to address a lot of them. So as you post your questions, I'll be filtering those in and asking them of Dr. Hyatt or Alice as we go if they're pertinent to the topic at hand, or saving them until the end. So right away, I want to share some statistics. Can't say that word. Statistics that Dr. Hyatt gave us, and that is that 1 in 4 struggle with depression. And this is not just the blues. This is not just feeling blah. This is a chemical imbalance that you can't pull out of by doing all the things. And most people don't even know that they have a problem. They just try to deal with it. And then it gets really, really bad. And traditionally, doctors prescribe some really harsh, damaging drugs. The official word or abbreviation for those kind of drugs is SSRI. And Dr. Hyatt's going to discuss those in a little bit. It has to do with serotonin, reuptake things. And, it's amazing that I don't know more myself because I dealt with this. But I happen to be one of those that I was given Zoloft. I was prescribed that. And it was actually Alice who really came alongside me as a friend and said, hey, I'm struggling with this too. And there's nothing wrong with taking a little pill if that's what keeps you from killing your kids. And, because honestly, I was in a really dark time there. My daughter had surgery, my son had surgery, and I had surgery all within a year. And that was a lot. And I got to a point where I just was incredibly not emotionally balanced. Looking at a sink full of dishes would send me into a rage or a fit of tears. It was just, and I'd be like outside my body looking at myself going, why are you reacting this way? This is just a sink full of dishes, but I couldn't get a grip. And having friends to support me really helped. And I just also want to say as we get started that that's not shameful to struggle with this. And Alice, you may even want to add that this is not about even who you are as a person or who you are in your faith, right? This is something we all struggle with. Tell us a little bit about your story, friend.
Okay. Well, I think that I've always had some issues with it, but I never fully knew it until I got on medication, actually. Back in 2004, I went to the doctor, and my blood pressure was off the charts because I was just nervous, And sometimes doctors just make me nervous, but at any rate, this doctor is like, hey, I have this little pill you could take, and it'll just help chill you out. And so I came home and I told my husband about it because I went there for some other reason, and he's like, he offered you this pill and you just didn't take it. And I'm like, well, I didn't see myself as somebody that was having a problem necessarily. But anyway, so I went back to the doctor and I said, give me the pill. So I took it, and it changed my attitude about a lot of stuff. It was just very, I wasn't depressed, but I wasn't overly excited about anything. It was just kind of drugged, actually. But it was better than who I was before.
Yeah,
And
you said in your notes that you kind of felt like a zombie, and I remember you saying that, and I kind of remember feeling that same way myself. But at the time and at first, I welcomed that because I was so overreactive before that being able to just not react to stuff was nice for a while.
For a while. Yeah, and then so I was on that particular drug for probably about 3 years, and then I moved, went back to a different doctor because I wanted off of them, and that doctor told me that he gave me all these statistics about when a patient gets on antidepressants or something, there's a certain percentage of them that will just never be able to get off of them because it's just your chemistry. It's just who you are, and you're just never going to be able to produce what you need. And so he said, but here, try it anyway. So he gave me these instructions: cut down on this pill, and within 2 weeks you should be off of it. And he literally wrote down a number, handed it to me, and said, if you feel like killing somebody, call this number.
Oh, no.
And so there was no support whatsoever. It was just that information. And so I went home and I did what he told me to do. And pretty soon I'm like staring in the mirror at this woman who I hated. I hated who she was becoming again. And the thing of it is that I came off of it so fast that I could see myself. And I think a lot of times when we're in predicaments like this, you can't see yourself for who you are. I mean, other people might be able to, but at any rate, I just nosedived something awful. And I asked my husband a couple weeks into it, I said, okay, I need the honest truth. Is this the normal me, like before I was on medication? And he's like, yeah, it is. And so I said, I can't do this to you. I'm going back to the doctor and getting on drugs, and if I have to be on them for the rest of my life, that's what I'm going to do. But you're not living with this person. I can't live with this person. It ain't happening.
Goodness. That so resonates with me because what you just said about how you looked in the mirror and you saw yourself. Because when you get to the point with depression and anxiety, where you can't even see, you can't see straight. You can't even see yourself. You know you're not you, but you can't categorize any information, whether it's about the dishes or yourself. And then when you start to go off of it, you have to face it. But if you're not ready to face it, or your body's not ready because you're still not in balance, that's where things become a problem. And it's really freaky.
Yeah, it is, because you feel like you have absolutely no control, but you're watching yourself at the same time, so you feel like you should have control, and it's just not. So anyway, it was really, really crazy.
Now this is where you went back on, but Dr. Hyatt comes in here at some point, and this is I also got connected with Dr. Hyatt because Chris is my business partner for Fit2B. So we're having this whole roundabout thing, and I want people watching to know that Fit2B is the host of this particular live chat, and we're an online fitness provider. But my experience with depression and Alice's experience with depression and many of my members and clients' experiences with depression have all told us this affects our fitness and wellness at multiple levels, not just our mood and our energy. So I want to give Dr. Hyatt a moment to introduce himself, and Dr. Hyatt, have you speak to just that connection really quick, because I know some people watching this are like, wait, what does this have to do with fitness? So tell us a little bit about your background and your expertise and your heart for this, but also make a link for us about what does this have to do with fitness?
Will do, thank you. So I guess maybe what I'll do is I'll step back to when I was in medical school. I had a friend who was having trouble with alcohol abuse. And so he approached me at one point and he said, "Hey, do you know anything about amino acids?" I said, "Sure, we learned about them in school, but I haven't had a lot of experience yet with therapy because I was still in training, and we didn't have a lot of direct training when I was in school with alternative therapies for depression." But what ended up happening is he shared this with me. He went out and found a way to treat himself. There was a book called The Mood Cure by Julia Ross, and I don't know, some of you may have heard of that book, but
Yeah, I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what she does in the book is she has lots of questionnaires. She gears her entire practice is geared towards mental health, and so there are some questionnaires in the book where she talks about kind of leads you to. There's a depression questionnaire. There's one for anxiety, and she has several others, but. She will have clients come in her office, talk with her, answer the questionnaire, talk with her about what their symptoms are, and then once she kind of narrows it down, she would treat them with amino acids. So I got really interested in amino acid therapy because of Julia Ross in her book, The Mood Cure. He ended up using the protocol that she suggested from the book, and basically healed himself. He no longer had a problem with alcohol. He realized that it was because of a neurotransmitter imbalance, and so I became really interested in that. And I thought, when I'm done with school, and this was over 10 years ago, I wanted to work with people who had depression and anxiety and brain-based disorders from an alternative standpoint, because I'm a naturopath. So I went to school from 2002 to 2006. And I've just always had a heart to help people. When I was in high school, I would be working with people, trying to help them with their back problems and different things. So I've always had a real keen interest in helping people. Where this sort of comes together with Alice and Chris is, Chris and I met through a psychologist friend of ours. Chris was doing some work with him. I actually worked with him in the office, in my office practice in New Bergen and Sherwood. And so what happened was Ryan, this guy told me that I should meet Chris. Chris and I met. We sat down and talked for 2 or 3 hours and just kind of hit it off. And I think at that point in time, Chris thought I was a little crazy, but I was approaching him with a possibility of a business deal, and so we said, "Hey, let's talk about this." Well, he shared with me some things that were going on with Alice, and so we started working on. I said, "Hey, I've got this product that I'm using in practice, and it's been really effective for depression and for any patient who's on an SSRI." And so we can tie that in here in a minute, the SSRI, but it's the antidepressant of choice these days. And so any patient that's on that can potentially benefit from this natural alternative approach. And so we decided to start some therapy and kind of go that direction, but I'll let Alice kind of pick up from there as far as our relationship goes. But I've just always been really interested in working with brain-based disorders, and so this is something that we just kind of really happened by chance, just a chance meeting.
Yeah, it is. It's such a neat connection, and I know that when I first started thinking, well, maybe I'm dealing with depression. I've had a couple kids in a couple years. I've gone through some pretty big life stuff over that time too, and I just feel off. I started doing personal research, and it was always like, take St. John's wort. Sure. Drink chamomile tea, do yoga, pray more, fast. And it was like, okay, all right. So, I do those things, and no, it actually got worse.
Yeah.
And because those are tools that might help somebody who just is blah, sure. But it was more than blah. So, and I know, like, just my conversations with Alice over the years, it's been fascinating for me. Because I've known you so long, my friends, just to watch how you really are in such a better place Not that you were horrible. I didn't think you were horrible. I don't know what Chris is talking about. Then again, I wasn't living with you, so.
Yeah, you weren't living with me.
But it's like you're so much more connected and in tune to your body and yourself. You're so much more confident, and you don't second guess yourself as much. I don't know. You're just so much more centered, literally, and that's coming from me. And that's kind of my thing, is people who are centered and helping people find their center and feel that confidence and feel like they're beautiful again. And I feel like watching you, I remember when you started taking this product that Dr. Hyatt formulated, and I was like, oh my gosh, because the meds worked for me. I was one of that statistic where I was able to use them successfully and come off of them successfully. I still have my days.
Yeah.
Okay. But, so I was doubtful at first, honestly, but I've watched you do this. I've watched the product grow. I watched the product reach more people. And again, we're not pushing this. I'm not going to be selling Equilibrate on Fit2B. The reason why we're having this live chat is to just equip our followers and fans with some real personalized information that, hey, there's options out there besides meds, and hey, we've been there and we're willing to talk about it. So tell us more of your story.
Which one are you talking to?
Alice.
Okay. All right. Yes. So I went back. So I was on medication in totality for about 8 years. And then I tried getting off after about 3 years into that journey, and it didn't happen. So I went back, and the drugs they were better than who I was before drugs. So that was my option. That's all I knew. So I met Dr. Hyatt, and he says, hey, I have this product that I've been working on. It's helped a lot of people, and I am willing to help you get off of your drugs and try this out for yourself if you want to do it. And I'm like, you betcha I want to do it, because if there's another way around this that's healthier for me, then I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I did, and the whole process of getting off of all that medication was about 2 months.
Yeah, so you didn't do it cold turkey, and that's important to note. Is that's one of the things that actually intrigued me about this approach was it was one of the first natural methods where the proponents of it were not saying things like, you don't need any medication, you can just quit taking your meds and and this was no, you know what, hey, those are actually a part of you. We need to be careful how we transition you. We need to make sure you're going to be okay. Yes. We need to make a careful and methodical approach to making sure this is going to.
What a different way of going about it than the last way the medical doctor told me to get off of it. It's as if the guy knew nothing about what I was on and what it would do to me. Mm-hmm. That's really scary, actually, because messing around with your brain like that could be really dangerous.
Yeah. Now, I just got to jump over to Dr. Hyatt, because, can you tell us, they're called SSRI, which stands for what, and how do they work?
So an SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So I'm going to briefly explain this. It's really difficult for me to.
And those are the meds. That's the general name.
Because normally what I do for patients is write on a piece of paper. So if you can visualize, we'll see if we can do this. We have one nerve cell over here, and I've got my hand. You can probably see that in the video. One nerve cell here and one here. In between the two nerve cells is a very, very tiny gap. What happens is you have serotonin going from here over to here through the gap. Okay? On this side, there are receptors. The serotonin binds the receptors. So it comes out of this cell, goes through in the gap, binds the receptor, and then the nerve signal goes this way. Okay? So in the brain, we have these circuits that are wired. It's just like an electrical signal in your brain. It's perpetuated by the use of serotonin. So what the drug does, the drug hangs out and keeps in what it does is it hangs out in this what's called the synapse, the space between the two cells, and it binds to the receptor, so serotonin can't go back into the cell from where it started. Okay? So what happens when you do that is you get more binding events with these receptors. It causes more binding events, and in this case, serotonin is used in the body to give you a sense of well-being. It performs a lot of functions, but that's one of them. So we know when we use an SSRI or one of those drugs, it blocks the serotonin from going back to the cell from where it came, and when it does that, it will eventually get degraded. So you end up with less serotonin all of the time. As you're using that drug, it ends up decreasing the amount of serotonin your body can use.
Oh, interesting.
So that's how it
almost
works.
Almost like insulin resistance.
In some ways, yeah, there are some similarities there. But so the bottom line is, some people make enough serotonin to sort of keep the machinery going. Other people don't make very much serotonin, and so when you give them an SSRI, what are the two things that happen with these drugs? One, they have to go on a higher dose, or they have to go on a different drug, or they have to go on more than one drug. There's a percentage of the population that ends up having to do that. So that's kind of the problem with those drugs. There's one other problem, and that is any drug that works in the brain on a specific neurotransmitter. So let's say you're taking Ritalin or Adderall for the dopamine system, okay, because we know that improves focus.
Right.
It's a stimulant drug. Anything that affects the dopamine system in the brain will negatively affect the serotonin system, and vice versa. So anything that affects the serotonin system will negatively affect the dopamine system. So we're not always, and if you look at the drug monograms, they will tell you every time, we don't really know exactly which receptor this binds to. There are some drugs they do, but there are other drugs that they use, they say, we're not really quite sure how this works, but it does. So we're going to give you the drug. Now, with that said, I'm not going to tell you that I do not prescribe SSRIs, because I do. And you have to know there are some people that need to be on the SSRIs. That's very, very important. And especially
because
for
if they're about to commit suicide, you're trying to save their life.
Well, I'm not going to give somebody a supplement who's about to commit suicide. We really want to get people stable. The problem is, when people want to go off their medication, what are their options?
Nothing.
They don't have one. I mean, Alice is a perfect example of someone who tried and it didn't work. I would be willing to bet you most of the people on SSRIs, and those drugs, by the way, were only meant to be prescribed for 14 weeks, short-term use.
So even my 15 months was too long.
I mean, it worked for you, and we're glad, and that's great.
True. Yeah.
However, they were meant for short-term use to get people through a severe depression so that they would not commit suicide. And so it's the problem right now is that doctors don't have a great alternative. So they put you on an SSRI, you're going to end up staying on it because you don't want to go off of it because of the negative side effects when you do. So that's kind of in a nutshell. But I do prescribe the medications because there are some people that need them. I mean, we've exhausted every other option, and that's just the way that it is. But there's a lot of people who do not need to be on them, who are still on them because they can't quit themselves.
Right. And those are the people that you really are passionate about getting this information and this product into their view, because they maybe don't even realize that there's something like this out there. And Chris just messaged me and said that you guys, you actually call it EQ, which I love. It almost sounds like IQ. But it used to be called Equilibrate. Why did you choose that name, Equilibrate?
I was looking for, I'll be honest with you, I was looking for something that was, I am an alternative practitioner, but I'm not your typical kind of woo-woo guy. I wanted something that was fair. I came from a Western medicine world, okay?
Yeah.
For me, I wanted something that was fairly, sounded like it would be a pharmaceutical, but a natural alternative. So Equilibrate is sort of sophisticated sounding. Anyway, I also wanted it to be something that meant something that it did, something that it was. So Equilibrate, to bring something into equilibrium means you're trying to balance it out, and what we're trying to do is balance brain chemistry out. We use a combination of serotonin precursors or or compounds that increase serotonin, compounds that increase dopamine, and norepinephrine in the brain. So it was basically meant to try to, I wanted the word to mean something. So equilibrate was great when it started, but I think what we've decided at this point was that it's too hard to say.
Yeah.
And EQ, yeah, EQ kind of rolls off the tongue. It's just, so that's what we decided we wanted to do, is kind of.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, and what you just said about that it, when your equilibrium, okay, is another, it's a big fancy word for your balance. If you've lost your equilibrium, you've lost your balance. And we talk about things like migraine and brain fog and fibromyalgia and the connections that those have to some of these same neurotransmitter issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think we use the word depression and anxiety a lot, but if you really break depression down, there's a whole bunch. Just go to the DSM-4, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for psychologists and psychiatrists for disorders, for mental disorders. There's a myriad of definitions or sub-definitions of depression. So yeah, brain fog, fatigue, irritability, low motivation, all sort of fall into that. Hopelessness, all kind of fall into that diagnosis. So,
and those things all do connect with how we are nourishing our bodies. And if we're missing things, if we're low on things, we're going to experience these symptoms. Okay, because I almost hear you saying that, like, what we need to do is treat the root of this, and that there are some ingredients and some I don't know, minerals. I don't have the products in front of me with what's in it, but I know from talking with my clients and talking to dietitians and nutritionists that everything goes back to the gut. Everything goes back to how we're feeding ourselves, and we're just not giving our bodies what they need, really. So when we can go to a place where we can give our bodies what they need, is that a part of it? Can you validate that?
Yeah, it sure is. I think here's the important thing from my perspective. Again, I'm an alternative practitioner. I'm a holistic practitioner. I like functional medicine. I like looking at the person as a whole. And if a person is not properly nourishing their body, how can they expect to get the nutrients that they need to make the machinery work? And what you see so much of these days is poor diet leads to all kinds of problems. So it all starts in the gut. It all starts with what we're taking into our bodies. So I really do. I love to have products to be able to use for conditions. Okay, that it's important because it's part of my medicine. But the foundational medicine is nourishing the body in the proper way. And so we like to make sure that we're getting proper nutrition in so that your body has a chance to do what it is able to do. Now, there are some times when you're doing everything you can nutritionally. I have people come in there on super clean diets, they drink water, they sleep, they do all these things, and they still have imbalances and problems. So what you have to do is then go look at what the source of the problem is. Is it hormonal? Is it their gut? Is it the brain? Is it there's some physical aspect, or is there some disease that's causing a problem and inflammation in the body? So we're looking at it from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah. Well, and I know my husband recently went through some stuff where, you've treated my husband, so you know.
He's a great guy, by the way.
Yeah, and he went on an anti-inflammatory protocol.
Yeah.
Under the supervision of a naturopath that's closer to us. He liked you a lot, but it was quite a drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that, and he's stuck with it. He's able to fudge a little bit on it nowadays, which is nice. But he's doing so much better because his stuff was coming from his gut. I mean, his aches and pains, his tummy trouble, his fascia, his connective tissue issues have gotten a lot better. So that's been interesting to watch. And I know, Alice, I think it's also interesting that in the process of you taking this stuff in the past few years, you also figured out that you have gluten issues, right?
Yep, and dairy. Dairy and gluten.
Yeah, and how does that tie in for you?
Well, I'm sure that it was what I was eating was also not helping my attitude issues. But some of the symptoms that I was getting from what I was eating went away. that I'd been dealing with for years and years and years. And I never knew that that what I was eating was causing, my scalp to itch like mad. That was.
I remember when we went to that store and we bought those little scalp itchers.
Oh my word! I hallelujah, praise the Lord! I have found the source.
And you're like, hey, this is great.
Yes, but I was just uneducated. I didn't know. I just didn't know.
That is funny, man. That just memories.
Yeah, yeah. And,
Well,
but you know what? It took this marvelous natural path to help me figure that out. Because when I did go to the medical doctor for it, they gave me a thick cream to put on my scalp once a day. Have you seen how much hair I have? It was insane. I could not believe it. They just gave me a Band-Aid for it. That's it.
Well, and that's what I love about naturopath doctors is that the ones I have worked with, and I've worked with 4 throughout my life, no 5, they usually are, well, the ones I've worked with are trained in both. They're willing to do medicine if you need it. But they will do the natural things first. So like when I had strep throat a couple years ago, my naturopath, I tested positive for strep in her clinic. She said, we're going to do all these natural things. She had phytolacca oil with all these oils and Epsom baths and high doses of vitamin C and all these other herbs, and good grief. She said, if you don't respond though, within 3 days, you're going on antibiotics, because that is what we do. But I responded. And I beat strep throat, a really bad case of it, without any antibiotics. But she was willing to use those. Just like Dr. Hyatt, you've said that, hey, there's a time and place for medicine, for that. But there's, let's explore, let's try to get it to work with, and let's offer these alternatives, right?
Without a doubt, I think anyone who draws a line in the sand and they say we're only doing it this way is missing out on the myriad of treatments and opportunities to help people. So we're just looking at it from a holistic standpoint, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to get the patient better. Sometimes you have to palliate or treat the pain and the issue right there and make the patient feel better.
Yeah.
In the long term, we want to see if we can use sleep, nutrition, lifestyle factors, exercise to bring people into a place. And you had mentioned earlier, Bethany, about your site basically, and what you do is help people become the best that they can be. And physically, there's a component there, and I think wanting to look at some of these other factors and looking at how is my gut functioning, how is my nutrition, how is my sleep, those other things can be really important to help people become the best that they can be. Are they looking at things from a holistic, global view? And I think one of the things with kind of getting back to the brain issue again is that if a person is we have to understand there's always a physical issue behind a problem.
Mm-hmm.
There are emotional issues, and emotional issues can be perpetuated by poor nutrition, but there's all kinds of things that can go on there. And so we want to take care of the physical aspect, we want to take care of the emotional aspect, we want to take care of the spiritual aspect. I mean, people have to pay attention to that also. And so what we try to do is emphasize the fact that if you've got, for instance, a neurochemical imbalance, instead of just throwing the drug at it to hit the receptor and get the response you want, or just to keep from going crazy, that may not be the best thing. So we want to look at all of those factors and say, okay, let's see what we can do moving forward. So.
Now, you just hit so many of my own triggers when you said that last little piece, because I've personally witnessed how you take a woman who's just falling apart emotionally. I go to shake her hand at an event, and she's there to have me check her tummy. And as soon as I touch her stomach, she cries.
Yep. Yep.
And then when I have her try on a splint, she's like, oh, and she instantly feels more stable. And then when they, you teach them that first belly breath, and I'm just talking about stuff that we do with Fit2B,
Sure.
just basic core stabilization is where we start all of our members, and how much that instantly improves their confidence and how they feel about themselves. We were just talking today with our ad manager about, just how do you market Fit2B? Because we're so different. We're not really trying to sell women on getting their body back as much as we're trying to encourage them to see themselves as beautiful and that they matter and that they're important, and that starts in the core, that starts in the deep belly for a lot of them, because it starts in the gut. It really does. And emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And when we address those things, they start changing and they find hope. But like you said, that stuff has to be addressed. And it's, you give them a pill, and doctors that prescribe pills, they're not bad doctors, but that's just one little part of what's really going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think part of the problem is that our medical system is such that the doctor has 7 minutes to spend with a patient. They have to have some, that's the truth. And I mean, most medical doctors will see 35 people a day, and they don't have time. And I feel bad for them, because a lot of those people in that system don't want to be doing what they're doing, but they're doing it because they're trying to make a difference for people. And their hearts are good, their intention is good. It's just our system is flawed that way.
Yeah, but it is.
Yeah.
Now, my question for both of you, I want both of you to answer this, is if you had a woman sitting right across from me right now who was like, I think I'm depressed, what do I do? Like, I know you as a doctor, you can't dispense medical advice over this particular platform, but like, what would, if you could say something to that woman, what would you say?
Sure.
Both Alice and Dr. Hyatt.
So I can say this because there's no specific recommendation, but I can tell you what I typically will do with patients, and then just as a kind of an overview. Someone comes in and they've got an issue with depression. I'm going to say, okay, somebody says they're depressed. Well, what's going on? Are you sleeping? What are you eating? Are you exercising? How are your relationships? How do you feel about yourself? Basically go right down the line and hit all those buttons and say, okay, so now that we got all those answers, let's look at diet and nutrition. Make sure we're doing those things right. Make sure the exercise piece is in. Make sure the sleep is in. And then we do tests. So particularly more with women than with men, I'm going to look at hormones as the very first thing that we want to see if hormone balance is in place.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
I'm serious. It is huge, and there's recently been some new tests that have come out that are absolutely fantastic for showing you how you metabolize your hormones. And I'm not going to do an ad here for that, but that has been such a great tool for me, because I can look at all the hormones, look how they're broken down, look where the holes and the problems are, and then we can say, okay, well, you might be depressed because of cortisol levels. You might be depressed because your hormone levels, your sex hormones are off. So we want to look at hormones first because they're major drivers in the body, and then what we do from there is I'll say, okay, assuming we're getting good nutrition and all those other factors are in place, how's your thyroid? We'll look at the endocrine system. Is the thyroid working? Once we have all those answers, endocrine system, gut, then we can go and say, okay, well, how's brain function? What's going on up there? Do you have a history of depression in the family? Have you been on medication? Have you had relatives that have had a history of depression? Are they on medication? So then we kind of chip away at each issue until we get to, okay, this is what I think we need to do, and we come up with a comprehensive plan for them.
You know, I love that approach. It is so rare that I hear that approach. And I am delighted that you're bringing that up, because I cannot tell you how many times we've had threads in our member forum where women are like, okay, I'm doing all the things. I'm eating right, and I'm exercising, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting a decent amount of sleep for a mom. I mean, how's that? Why am I gaining weight? Why am I stressed all the time? And I'm always like, cortisol, hormones, get your hormones checked. So then they go in And they're like, oh yeah, well, my doctor, they just put me on a pill and they didn't go in and talk to your doctor and ask for a hormone test. And then they'll come back probably half the time and be like, well, they want me to just stay on these meds for a while and just see if they help. And I'm going, because I'm a fitness pro, I'm not a doctor. I can't legally say your doctor is an idiot and you need to find, but that's what I feel like screaming. So, I can speak generally right now because I'm not addressing anybody in particular. So the hormones are huge. How long does it take for those tests to come back?
So the particular test that I'm talking about is a urine-based test where you have 4 strips. You urinate on 4 strips throughout the day. You send the test in. It takes 2 weeks to get the results back once you send it in. Here's the catch, is you have to do the test on days 19, 20, or 21 of your cycle if you cycle normally.
Ooh, interesting.
So what we're doing is trying to find peak estrogen, progesterone values where they sort of come together, kind of right before they start going down.
Wow.
And so it's great because it's very comprehensive, and it takes a couple of weeks. So sometimes you have to wait a month and a half to get your cycle to come back around, but once you send the kid in, it's usually about 2 weeks, and it's wonderful. It just gives you lots of information.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds really exciting because I know when I did my test, because just last year for my well woman, once a year, check all the things, get the oil changed. I was like, hey, I want you to test my hormones. And she goes, why? And this is a naturopath. And she's like, you're fine. I said, I just want to know. I just want to know. I just want to be on the safe side. And I know that, she's like, well, it's a blood test. And I was like, yeah, and that was what was available just a year and a half ago. So to hear that there's a test out there now that's urine based, I mean, good grief. That would be, I can, some women might rather do the blood test than do the whole pee on a stick thing. It just depends on the woman, but if it can test so many different things and it's also based on your cycle and being intentional about when you take it, and because that is a huge factor. Yeah. And here's the interesting thing about it is that the hormones tie in with the neurotransmitters intimately, right? Neurotransmitters stimulate the hypothalamus and pituitary gland in the brain to produce hormones. So this is the one thing that I always tell people is that you take care of the hormones and you look at the neurotransmitters because they are driving every single function in the body. Yeah. And if you're not making enough and you're not, there's an imbalance, you're going to have problems. Yeah. So it's fun to look at the whole system. Again, you're looking at all these pieces you can put together in this puzzle and go, oh, this is what's going on. So it's so instead
valuable.
Of just assuming that it's a brain issue and putting them on serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
Yes.
I said it.
Yes.
You as long as they're not like in a terrible place, you want to try to go those routes first.
Yep. Yeah, fine. I mean, how many times have women in particular been to the doctor, complained about issues that seemingly are related to hormones, and they're walking out with a prescription for an SSRI?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time.
Oh, and I'm sure, and looking back and, I mean, it was just one conversation with my doctor. It was my OB, the guy who delivered my kids. And just, and he did spend a half hour with me. It was great. He was a great OB, 1 in a million around here. And I still refer people to him because he's wonderful. Like if that's how you want to have your baby, go see Dr. Drake. He's great. But it was, I left wondering like, well, why didn't he run a couple of tests? Like, why didn't he actually test anything? Why did he just instantly prescribe me this? I mean, it was probably because I pretty much told him I was about to go psycho on my kids. That could have had something to do with it.
Hit the eject button, for sure.
Yeah. Now, Alice, tell me, I mean, if you, probably similar to what you told me a long time ago, or maybe not, I don't know. What would you tell a girl, a woman, a friend sitting across from you?
I think that I would, listen closely for a while, and I would probably tell her that life is too short to be messing around with it. If she's feeling like she's having issues, then she needs to find help, and there's help out there. There is. There's answers to our questions if we're willing to dig deep for them. And she owes it to herself to look for those answers, because she's important not only as a human being in her entirety, but also to her husband or her kids or, or her employer or whatever it is that, whoever she's connected to, she affects everybody around her. It's not just her, it's everybody that's touched to her. So it's extremely...
It's that whole, if mama's not happy...
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we just have to take the bull by the horns and not be ashamed if we think there's a problem. And I think that there's a lot of us out there that don't talk about it because we think that we'll be looked down upon, or we just don't want to pull it out and look at it.
Yeah, because like you said, it's hard. It's hard to look ourselves in the face, and it's hard to at first admit that there might be a big problem. And I know we had somebody write in and comment about the stigma with postpartum depression or any type of mental issues that have to do with women, especially women, sadly, in the church. It's like, well, you should just be leaning on Jesus more.
Yeah, no. I mean, yes, that's a good thing, but
yes.
don't let me steer you wrong there. But there is issues going on up here that can help that relationship. It's, and it's extremely important. Nobody should ever feel ashamed of the problems that they're dealing with. And if you don't realize that there's a problem, then you can't go fixing it. It never gets fixed.
Yeah.
So.
And I think I'm thinking right now of the woman, and we were talking about the Bible, so why not go there? But I'm thinking about the woman who, she'd been bleeding for 12 years. And she wanted to meet Jesus. And so she snuck up behind him in a crowd and just touched the hem of his garment, because if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be well. And it's like, she was embarrassed and she was ashamed, but even in that, she still took it upon herself to reach out for help. Mm-hmm. And, she was like, I'm just going to do this one thing. And she had tried everything. It says she had gone to all the doctors and tried all the things. And the only thing left was this last ditch effort of just grasping the hem of Jesus' garment. And Jesus felt a power going out from him and turned around and said, "Women, your faith has made you well." And of course, some people seize on that and go, "Well, you just need to have more faith." And I'm going, well, but it wasn't just her faith. It was that she did something. And she shouldn't have even left her house. She did something socially unacceptable by leaving her home and entering a crowd. Because if you had her condition, if you bled that long, you were unclean and you should not have even been out in public. And everybody would have been like, unclean, unclean, get away from me. And somehow she managed to get past that shame, or maybe that shame motivated her. And so it's sometimes seen as socially unacceptable to admit you have depression or to get help for it or to admit that you're on medication. But I think it takes faith to do that, to speak up and say, I've got this and I am getting help and you can get help too. And we're in this together, and just reach out.
Yeah.
Sorry, kind of went preachy there.
No, it's okay. It's all applicable for sure.
Yeah. I want to encourage those who are still watching. I know this has been deep. There's a lot going on, and we've got people hopping on and hopping off, and more people that are going to watch later than are even watching now, because this is going to go on YouTube. But if you're watching, please submit your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Can you speak to a time, Dr. Hyatt, when you maybe had somebody who came in to see you and they needed to be on something, but you had a hard time convincing them? Have you ever been in that situation?
It's funny because usually when people end up in my office, I don't want to say maybe their last hope, but I'm certainly well down the line, because people come to see an alternative practitioner because they've been some disillusionment with the way things have gone prior to them coming in my office. So, yeah, I mean, I've had I've had lots of skeptics. I mean, that's I'm a skeptic, and I think the hard part for me was understanding how things worked. Once I understand that there was science behind some of the stuff that I've been talking about, or that I am talking about, it made it easier for me to recommend different approaches to people. So I always make sure that there is good science behind things that we're trying to do with people. I've had many cases where you can just tell with people when they're looking at you a little bit cross-eyed when you're explaining things to them. It can be, yeah, and you know what, I welcome it, because I think it's people end up here because they want an explanation, right? And that's what I try to do. I try to educate people. I'm basically just recommending something for them. I am not treating them, they're treating themselves. And I think that there's an important distinction. So when they come in, I usually talk to people, say, hey, you're your own doctor. I'm going to give you advice with what I think you should do, because you're paying me to do that. Yeah. But let me give you all the things that I know, put them all out on the table and say, okay, these are your choices, this is what you can do. If you choose to do this, you know, it's your choice. It's ultimately your choice. So for me, it's not so much about talking people into something as it is about educating them and saying, hey, this is what I think we need to do, and I just address all the important points and let them be their own guide.
Yeah. You know, and we just got a comment from Laura who says, Alice, you made me cry. I have struggled so long. This talk came at the best time. Thank you. Everyone tells me to just think positive thoughts. And I got told that too. And I'm sure, Alice, you got told that. Alice, what do you have to say about that blanket statement of just think positive thoughts? Just believe in yourself.
Well, you can't just think positive thoughts if you don't have this going on correctly up here. It's kind of laughable when you're actually struggling and having a problem. I mean, there is hard to find the joy when you feel like you have no control over it, like you're stuck. And people that have never experienced depression, they don't understand that. And I don't know that they ever will, but you just need to detour around that and fix the problem or get help for the problem, and then we can focus on finding happier thoughts and more joy, because it's a lovely thought, but when you're mentally incapable of doing it, it is, I don't know, you feel, yeah. I guess it would make me feel like that they felt like I was lying about my emotions.
You know what, Alice, I think you just said something really important that I maybe want to highlight on. You have to have the underlying, the leg on the table to stand. So what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that if you don't have the mental capacity to be able to will yourself into changing behavior or seeking help in a different way, the big problem oftentimes is that you just don't have the chemistry. And we need to admit that and understand that there is a chemical issue underlying. I've seen people all the time that say, I have the will, I just can't seem to do this or that. Well, maybe you don't have the chemistry to support it. So there are people out there that are like that. And sometimes, you have to take care of that physical problem before you can move through and change behavior or move more or eat better or do those kind of things. Is you have to have that support. So I think that's an important point there.
Well, and it brought back a really strong memory that I just had of when somebody tried to tell me that. And I remember thinking, okay, yeah, but I remember visualizing this box where I'm supposed to find those positive thoughts. Like I should just be able to go find positive thoughts and pull them out of a box and put them in my head and have positive thoughts. But I remember distinctly this moment feeling like, okay, I'm going to go get that box out that's labeled positive thoughts, and looking in that box, and there's nothing. That I don't have any. I don't have any positive thoughts. How I can't have them if I don't have them.
Well, and it's almost in a sense, it's like when you have the flu, you have no appetite.
Yeah.
And it's almost like having the flu in your brain.
That's so
You
good.
have no appetite for positive thoughts.
It can be the best meal ever.
I really want to have those positive thoughts, but I'm sorry, I don't feel good enough to do it.
Yeah. And even the thought of having them makes me feel sick right now.
Yeah. Makes me want to hit you.
Makes me want to barf. That is so accurate to what I remember. And yeah, man, this has been great. And I just know we haven't had too many questions. Maybe it's because we've just been answering them as we go. I don't know. I'm sure there's probably going to be some that roll in later. And I can't wait to be able to point to this video when my members have future questions in the forum. Dr. Hyatt, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
I think my encouragement to everyone who's watching this video would be understand that there are options, probably more than you think, when it comes to treating certain situations. Maybe you haven't found the right person to deal with. You haven't run into the right therapy. There's lots of answers out there. I talk to doctors all the time. There are a lot of great physicians out there and practitioners who are well educated, willing to help, and I think the hardest part for some people is just reaching out and going, yeah, I need some help. So I think what I would say to people is keep looking, keep trying to figure out answers for your own health and pursue those, and understand when you go to obtain treatment for whatever it is, whether it's for what we've been talking about today or anything else, there's lots of options. There's lots of things you might not have heard of. So talk to different people, find out, and then go out and get some help.
Yeah. Well, and apparently, EQ, which is the product that Dr. Hyatt formulated, which is something that's designed to boost all these things we're talking about naturally, is available without a doctor prescription. So you can try it without talking to a doctor. Now, we did have a question that just popped up, and I think it's a really good one. It's probably one of the best questions. She just popped on, and she says, if somebody doesn't see that they have depression, but it's obvious to everybody else in the family, what is the best way that the family can help the person realize they have depression, or even just cope with day-to-day living? So I think it's twofold. It's not only helping that person cope, but coping with living with that person. Like Alice, you talked about, you were putting Chris through this. And I know my husband, bless his heart. But what would you say to a person in that situation, Dr. Hyatt?
It's interesting because, and I'll try to make this brief, I often have to employ spouses, family members, friends, close friends, when it comes to treatment. So you have to understand that this person who is struggling with this and doesn't know it, the way I've always dealt with things is to be fairly blunt and say, look, I think there's a problem. Have you considered ... Have you considered talking to someone? So bring up the question and then walk away, and then come back and bring the question up again and walk away, and then eventually have a serious conversation. Say, look, this behavior, whether it be you're pointing the finger at someone else or yourself, is affecting you in a certain way, and I like being direct with people because I feel like it's just more helpful. You can just kind of get right to the root of what's going on. But just oftentimes people don't know. I mean, it took me, very, very short story, I had terrible jaw tension, TMJ. I struggled with depression. I had recently had a family member die. I was really in a bad space. I was in medical school, and I had no idea how important or how my behavior had affected people around me until I started getting feedback later. But I took some medication, and it was a supplement, just by chance, that completely, within 5 minutes, turned around the way that I felt. And so I kind of went down part of my story, and we didn't really get to share much of my story, but part of mine was...
I'm sorry.
No, and I didn't.
That's
We
how
didn't
you want
intend
to
to do that, but it's way too long for this, probably this format, but maybe another time. I
Sure.
basically cured myself with this therapy that we've been talking about a little bit, because I was in a pretty bad space, and I was able to get instant relief. Later, my wife came to me and she said, "Yeah, you used to be blah dot 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 dot." So I don't know that people know unless someone makes them aware that there is an issue. So hearing videos like this, talking to different people and saying, "Hey, did you know about such and such?" I think people just have to become aware there are options out there. And I became aware of an option. I tried it. It worked. And then that's kind of how I ended up where I am. But listen to other people.
I think that we can also accidentally, we don't mean to do this, but we accidentally contribute to the stigma of this issue when we stay silent when somebody we love is dealing with this. Like if we make it embarrassing to talk about and we don't say anything, then the cycle just perpetuates itself. But if we can, and I would say even to pray over this, okay? Man, I feel like my faith is just really shining through. Fit2B is not necessarily like a Christian website, but I'm a Christian. And so it comes through sometimes. And but to pray about that and pray for an opportunity and a time, and just really be careful and cautious, but also purposeful to speak the truth in love. I love you. I care about you. Something's not right. And I don't really know what it is. Maybe do you think it could be this? Maybe consider this.
Yeah.
And then I love what you said, just walk away, hey, rub them on the back, love you, hug, I just want you to know, whatever it is, I love you. And I think when they know that it's okay and that you're there for them, it can make a big difference. Obviously, if somebody's really in a dark place and they're lashing out, that can get really sticky for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Alice, do you have any closing thoughts?
Well, I would say that that this product that I've been on for almost 5 years now, actually, has really balanced me. I mean, I have down moments just like everybody, and then I have up moments, and I have moments here, but it's never just here.
Yeah.
And or down here at the bottom where I've lived for a long time. But I'm not a salesman, and I don't like selling stuff, but
yeah.
I really do care about people, and offering help and advice if I know information that could help them. And I've done really well on this, and I think Dr. Hyatt is an amazing inventor, and I appreciate him helping me through this, and it's been just a world of difference between the medical doctors and naturopaths. And I would say don't be ashamed of your issues and your problems, and you'll find answers if you go looking for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, life is just too short. Don't waste your time thinking that you don't need help or whatever.
Yeah.
Go if you don't need help, then your research will tell you that. But
now, I know we're supposed to be wrapping up, but I will that I just need to say a couple more things. What you just said about how you've been on it for 5 years, I know a lot of people out there are kind of looking for something where we only just take it for a while. And they may be saying, well, do you expect to ever go off of it? And I suppose maybe, but I think it's also when you find something that works for you, even if you have to take it every day, just like taking your multivitamin every day, just like you get up and do your hair and makeup every day. And I know you do.
Yes.
And if that's what it takes, to survive, but not just survive, but thrive, which I think you do. A lot of people might not know that Alice has been playing and recording a lot of our soundtracks on Fit2B lately. A lot of our most recent releases have her music in the background. She's an excellent pianist and musician. I grew up listening to her play back when her mom would be like, Alice, it's time to practice. Mom. So that is just really cool. And she's, you're an amazing mom. Really, you are. And I look up to you in a lot of ways. And, you homeschool your kids, but your kids are also active in their community. You're active in the community. You play piano for a local elderly home, don't you?
Actually, it's the hospital lobby here in town.
Yeah. So, when you're struggling and you're down in the dumps, that stuff doesn't happen. And so it's like starting to see the fruits of your healing and that you're out there and you're doing things again. It's really cool.
Yep. And, and some of us, I think, just don't have a lot of the chemistry to just be without a brain fertilizer or something.
That's a good name for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's just,
there's your name, Dr.
And some of us can just get on just need something to get us through certain situations. But for me, I see myself as I always am gonna need something to boost.
And that's okay. You're just saying fertilizer. Every year I fertilize my garden, okay? And I feed my animals every day. We do things daily to take care of ourselves and our homes and our animals and our kids. If there's something we're going to do every day to take care of ourselves, that's a beautiful thing. If you figure out something that works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And, again, this is just promoting something that we have found within our families that has worked for us. I am not making any money off of this particular product. And which is actually kind of refreshing because I know a lot of people out there trying to sell supplements and this is not really like that. It's just, this just comes up so often in the Fit2B forum and it plays so much into the energy levels that women have and the desire that they have to move their bodies. Because when your brain is lacking fertilizer, we're just going to go with that.
That's right. You ain't going to feel like working out. I can assure you of that.
You don't feel like growing or doing anything. You barely are keeping yourself and your kids alive every day, and that's not a fun place to be. I've been there. Well, thank you for your time, both of you. I really appreciate it. And I would love to have you on again, Dr. Hyatt.
I would love to come back on. I really enjoyed the talk, and I want to thank both of you guys for spending time doing this. It's really fun to be able to talk about health and maybe in ways that people haven't heard. And so it's just really really nice to be able to be with you guys, and I thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would love to have you back on to talk about hormones because I feel like that could be a whole other session, if not.
We could talk about hormones. We could talk about movement. I've got a whole bunch of to talk to you about the stuff you guys are doing too. So
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining. Feel free to reach out. You can find us at fit2b.com or fit2b.us. Dr. Hyatt, what is the name of your website?
It's biogenicnutrition.com or www.biogenicnutrition.com.
Okay, you can also Google Dr. Hyatt, Dr. Timothy Hyatt, and he's in the Milwaukee, Portland, Oregon area-ish.
Sherwood.
Okay.
Sherwood.
I guess that's pretty far off.
You're close.
Dr. Timothy Hyatt, Oregon.
Yep.
And you'll find him. You can also, Google EQ or Equilibrate and probably get some information on that if you're interested. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye.